Good afternoon, everyone. We want to thank each of you for joining us today. Today we have on the line Carrie Goodman, who is our Executive Administrator at the Balm in Gilead, and myself, Betty Stevens, and I am the Director of Faith and Community Mobilization. Carrie will provide us with the history of our organization, information on our CEO, and the projects and services that the Balm in Gilead offers. Our agenda today is we're going to look at objectives. I'm going to give out a few webinar housekeeping guidelines, some information about the Balm, what is HIV, how do we get infected, who is at risk, how do we prevent infections, and then we'll have a period of questions and answering period. Our objectives are, sorry about that. Our objectives are to increase basic knowledge of HIV/AIDS, to address HIV-related stigma, and to equip the audience with information on, and skills to protect themselves from HIV infection. Here are a little housekeeping guidelines. If you experience any technical difficulties, please call our helpline at 888-225-6243 and ask for Carrie Goodman. Please make sure your phone is on mute. Please do not, if you can, place your phone on hold. When the lines are open for Q&A, use the icon. When polling questions arise, please respond. If you have any questions during the webinar, you may enter them into the chat box, and they will be answered. Now, Carrie's going to come forward and give you a little information about our CEO, our organization, and the services that we handle. Carrie?
Thank you so much, Betty. I am Carrie Goodman. I'm the Executive Administrator here at the Balm in Gilead, and it's so good to have so many of you on our call today, our webinar, for the Basic HIV 101 for Clergy. Dr. Pernessa C. Steele is our CEO and founder. The organization was founded in 1989, started out as the Harlem Week of Prayer for the Healing of AIDS. She envisioned faith communities playing a vital role in HIV prevention. She has obtained numerous recognitions for her work within the faith communities. The Balm in Gilead is known throughout the United States and Africa for its insightful understanding of religious cultures and value, and extraordinary ability to build strong, trusted partnerships with the faith community. Our mission of the Balm in Gilead is to prevent diseases and to improve the health status of Black people living in the United States, Africa, and the Caribbean by providing support to faith institutions in area of program design, implementation, and evaluation, which strengthens their capacity to deliver programs and services that contribute to the elimination of health disparities. Our corporate office of the Balm in Gilead is located in Richmond, Virginia, and we also have an office in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The Balm in Gilead programs and services are as follows. We have the National Week of Prayer for the Healing of AIDS, which is every March, the first Sunday in March through that Saturday. In 2013, it will be March the 3rd through the 9th, 2013. You can go on to the website www.nwpha.org to register your faith institution for the National Week of Prayer. We also have our Faith Lights the Way. That's our national HIV testing campaign, and it's, of course, sponsored by the Centers for Disease Control. We also have the African American Denominational Leadership Health Initiative, and that's our program that we have with the three denominations, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, and the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. And we've built a strong partnership with these three Methodist denominations to address health disparities within their congregations. We also have the ISIS program, which is our cervical cancer project. And also the Cup That Keeps On Giving, that is our coffee project, and that's our partnership with Sweet Unity Farm. Dr. Seal partnered with David Robinson, and the proceeds from donations received go towards, they go to support orphans, work with orphans and HIV in Tanzania. The other programs we have are Health Share and our capacity building and training services. If you're interested in any of our training services we have, you can definitely contact the Balm and Gilead and speak with Ashley Ramsey. She is the Director of Capacity Building and Training. We also have a great program design and development area, and also monitoring and evaluation. The Director of Monitoring and Evaluation is Dr. Ann Denise Brown. I hope I've given you enough information, but of course, if you need any other information on the Balm and Gilead and the services that we have available, you may visit us on the website at www.balmandgilead.org, and that is www.balminggilead.org. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Betty.
Thank you, Carrie. Now I have a question, a polling question for everyone that's out there, and it is, what is HIV? 1 second and the polling question will come up, and we really would like for you to respond. Give you a few seconds. We're just waiting for a few more of you to vote. Thank you so very much. We had 100% who had voted. I want to thank you. And the results are 100% correct. So this is great. Okay. Okay, what is HIV? As you can see from the slide, it is human. It only affects humans and can affect any human no matter what their age, race, gender, or sexuality is. The I is immuno, which is the immune system protects the body against new infections and fights off the ones we have. Deficiency is a state of lacking or being incomplete, and virus, an agent that infects the body or causes disease. AIDS is acquired, and it's an illness that must come from somewhere, not hereditary. Through something, sometimes it can be passed on from mother to child during birth. Immuno is the same as above. Deficiency is the same as above. And syndrome is a collection of symptoms. HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus, belongs to the same family as all viruses, which have been around for millions of years. Viruses affect plants, animals, and humans. They cause the common cold, flu, chickenpox, and shingles. What all viruses have in common is that they cannot live on their own. They depend on the host and use the cells of the host to grow and spread. The human immune system is available to keep most viruses in check. But with HIV, the body's immunity, its ability to protect itself from getting sick, is weakened. The HIV virus takes over the immune system cells and uses them to create more and more HIV until the healthy cells can no longer do their job of fighting infection. HIV lives in blood, semen, vaginal fluids, and breast milk. Once a person has been infected, the body begins making antibodies to fight the virus. An HIV test looks like these antibodies. If they show up, the person has tested HIV positive. You cannot tell that a person has HIV just by looking at them. An HIV positive person can look very healthy and still carry the virus. Once infected, a person will always carry the virus because there is no cure. Someone with HIV can pass it on to others, knowingly or unknowingly, through the blood-to-blood contact, unprotected sex, sharing needles used for injections, drugs or tattoos, or breastfeeding. Many people who are HIV positive don't even know it. Their immune system is still strong, and their T cells, the cells that make the antibodies to fight the virus, are still high in number. But as the HIV virus makes copies of itself and increases in quantity, known as the viral load, the immune system gets weak. The number of T cells available to make antibodies falls under the heavy load of the virus. At this point, an HIV-positive person can start to show symptoms like swollen glands, extreme fatigue, skin rashes, weight loss, severe cold, or pneumonia. When the number of T cells in the body falls below 200, the person with the virus is generally quite sick. The good news is that while there is no cure, people have lived with HIV for a long time without falling severely ill or getting AIDS. The key to living is getting medical attention fast. There are many treatment options available. People living with HIV/AIDS often take many types of drugs in different combinations. These drugs prevent the virus from taking over the T cell and using them to make copies of itself. Cutting off the virus' ability to replicate itself keeps viral loads low. When the viral load is low, the body does not have to work so hard to fight HIV. A low viral load also allows the person's T cell count to stay high and strengthens the immune system. Antiretroviral drugs have been amazingly effective. People living with HIV must also maintain good lifestyle habits to stay well, such as eating healthy foods, getting rest, and exercising. Let's look at the role of faith institutes in addressing HIV and AIDS. Okay, from the slide, it says, for many Americans, religious faith is the most important influence in their lives. Spirituality is an important part of coping for many individuals and families. Ministries can help prevent HIV by educating the entire congregation and youth by getting them involved in positive activities. Many black churches have heard the wake-up call. Today, thousands of black churches across America sponsor HIV/AIDS ministries. For some, that means a simple program of holding an AIDS prayer service and educating parishioners about HIV and AIDS. Other faith communities have launched multifaceted and powerful AIDS ministry that stands as beacons of hope in their communities. Partner with the local and national health care institutions and with governmental agencies. These large ministries are offering on and off-site HIV testing, medical evaluation, primary care, and a range of life-saving services including support groups, counseling, transportation, visitation, and housing. Through such programs, more brothers and sisters are learning about HIV and are getting tested for the virus. those who are living with HIV or AIDS are receiving the care and compassion they need. For a church to say, yes, we will now address the issue of HIV, often requires a change in attitude. It requires us to address our fears and prejudices. It asks us to re-examine traditional church views that deny the complex realities of sexual desires and activity, infidelity, homosexuality, and drug use. It asks us to talk about condoms and needles, teen sex, and senior sex. Here's a quote from Canon Frederick B. Williams. To reassess our Christian attitudes is an act of humility and courage, but one that can enrich us by affirming the breadth of Christ's love. We must remember that the Black church is our community. It's our community's most trusted and long-standing institution. It is the place Black people have always gone for comfort, healing, and fellowship. The church is our rock and our strength. It is where the civil rights movement was organized, from where Black leaders continue to arise. Let's look at stigma. Stigma. From my slide, as you see, there are quite a few bullet points that are out there. I'm just going to name a few. HIV and AIDS is a life-threatening disease, and therefore people react in its strong ways. HIV infection is associated with behaviors and that were already stigmatized in many societies, such as homosexuality, drug addiction, and prostitution. Most people become infected with HIV through sex, which often carries moral baggage. There are a lot of inaccurate information about HIV, how it's transmitted. HIV infection is often thought to be the result of personal irresponsibilities. Religious or moral beliefs lead some people to believe that being infected with HIV is the result of moral fault that deserves to be punished. The effects of the antiviral therapy on people's physical appearance can result in forced disclosure and discrimination based on appearance. AIDS-related stigma and discrimination refers to prejudice, negative attitudes, abuse, and maltreatment directed at people living with AIDS or HIV. The consequences of stigma and discrimination are widely ranging, being shunned by family, peers, and the wider community, poor treatment in healthcare and education settings, and erroneous of rights, and a negative effect on the success of HIV testing and treatment. HIV and AIDS-related stigma is not a straightforward phenomenon as attitudes toward the epidemic and those expected with it. Even within one country, reactions to HIV and AIDS will vary between individuals and groups of people. Community-level stigma and discrimination toward people living with HIV is found over the world. A community reaction to somebody living with HIV can have a huge effect on that person's life. If the reaction is hostile, a person may be discriminated against and may be forced to leave their home or change their daily activities such as shopping, socializing, or even schooling. In the majority of developing countries, families are the primary caregivers when somebody falls ill. This is a clear evidence that families play an important role in providing support and care for people living with HIV and AIDS. However, not all family responses are supportive. HIV-positive members of the family can find themselves stigmatized and discriminated against within their home. There is a concern that women and non-heterosexual family members are more likely than children and men to be mistreated. However, no policy or law can alone combat HIV/AIDS-related discrimination. Stigma and discrimination will continue to exist. so long as society as a whole have a poor understanding of HIV and AIDS and the pain and suffering caused by negative attitudes and discriminatory practices. The fear and prejudice that lie at the core of the HIV/AIDS-related discrimination need to be tackled at the community and national level, with AIDS education playing a critical role. A more enabling environment needs to be created to increase the visibility of people with HIV and AIDS as a normal part of any society. The presence of treatment can make this task easier, where there is no opportunity to live a fulfilling and long life with HIV. People are less afraid of AIDS. They are more willing to be tested for HIV, to disclose their status, and to seek care if necessary. The task is to confront the fear-based messages and biased social attitudes in order to reduce discrimination and stigma of people living with HIV and AIDS. Okay, next one. The role of Faith Institute addressing HIV and AIDS. Although there are various treatments and resources available, sometimes access is a problem. The local faith organization may be accessible than other institutes. In some cultures, congregation members consult their spiritual leader before seeking treatment or in lieu of treatment. I just want you to take a moment and think about, can someone think of a problem that might occur when trying to locate resources and treatment for those in need? You may type that in your chat box. While you're typing or taking your time to think about it, one of the steps is to engage your congregation, because sometimes there are nurses and doctors that are in your congregation that might be able to assist you with identifying resources such as clinics and free services that are offered within the community. Learn what your community needs. In choosing an HIV activity, you'll need to consider what services are available in your area. Access your church's resources. Once you have an idea of your congregation interests and your community needs, make an inventory of your church resources such as physical space, time, staff, volunteers, and money. Focus on your ministry. Make a list of HIV activities you think would be a good fit for your community. Enlist ministry health partners. That's always helpful, because if your local hospital HIV/AIDS program has had a problem recruiting Black community members into a support group, you might suggest that your church could sponsor a group. And always remember to recruit strong volunteers, those who are interested and are committed and want to be a part of the HIV ministry or your health ministry within your church. And I just want to remind everybody, I know that I have a Bible scripture at the bottom of this particular slide where Jesus ministered to the great multitude, but just a suggestion that remember how in the Bible the woman with the issue of blood and how she was stigmatized. We need to be sure that we're not doing that as the people did back in the biblical time as well. Counseling, testing, and referral. Have a list of health services, organizations such as the health department in your particular state, community-based organizations that provide testing, clinics that provide counseling and free services, and community-based organizations that provide HIV care services. It's always nice to have the addresses, the phone numbers, and a contact person. And if someone in the congregation needs that information, make sure when you provide the services for them or the resources for them that you have contacted that person at the health department or the organizations providing the testing or the counseling and free services, so that that particular person who needs those resources and that contact person that you have actually contacted and spoke with them, so that they will know when they call that information, that organization, that they can actually ask to speak to the person you would talk to. So it makes it like a smooth transition. Okay, here's another polling question. How does someone get infected with HIV? I'm going to give you a few minutes. With HIV. We're just waiting for a few more responses. Wonderful. Everyone got it right. Thank you so much. Okay. How do you get infected with HIV? Being in contact with an HIV-positive person, blood, semen, vaginal fluids, or breast milk. Having unprotected sex or anal sex with an HIV-positive person. Having unprotected oral sex with an HIV-positive person. Sharing objects on where there can be blood of HIV-positive person, including razors, syringes, needles, or other sharp objects used for tattooing or body piercing, and toothbrushes. Using birth control methods that do not protect against HIV infection, including diaphragms, cervical caps, sponges, spermicide, birth control pills. Having unprotected sex with someone who is taking HIV medication. You cannot contract HIV/AIDS by being around a person infected, sitting in the same room, breathing the same air, drinking from the same communion cup as an HIV-positive person, sharing the baptism pool with an HIV-positive person, holding hands, touching, hugging, or kissing the cheek of someone who is HIV-positive, using the same toilet seat, doorknobs, towels, or eating utensil as an HIV-positive person, being in contact with an HIV-positive person's sweat or tears, giving an HIV person a closed-mouth kiss, mosquito, flea, or insect bites, or donating blood. Another polling, who is at risk? Those are our spaces that, like everyday people, right? Yeah, who's at risk? Well, this is telling me that anybody can be at risk. Anybody. We need to keep that in mind. It's not who we are, but what we do that put us at risk for HIV. As you can see from the slide, anyone who has unprotected sex with multiple partners, anyone who demonstrates risky behaviors in today's society and age group or gender, anyone who lacks knowledge of HIV and AIDS. Here, sometimes it helps if we put some numbers or some statistics by that. If you look at this particular slide, as you can see, in 2009, the estimated rate of HIV infection among black men was 6.5 times as high as that of white men, and more than 2.5 times as high as the Hispanic or Latino men and of black women. In that same year, the estimated rate of new HIV infection among black women was 15 times that of white women and over 3 times that of Hispanic Latino women. It's not who we are, but our behavior that puts us at risk. And from the slide, as we can see, both African American males and females are disproportionately affected by HIV. Here's some fast facts for you. 1.2 million in the United States are living with HIV infection, and 1 in 5 are unaware of their infection. This information was retrieved from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Men who have sex with men, also known as MSM, particularly young black MSM, are most severely affected by HIV. By race, blacks, African Americans face the most severe burden of HIV. Here are some more numbers for you. It was estimated once again in 2009 that new HIV infection within the subpopulation was led by white MSN, or men who have sex with men, closely followed by black MSN, then Latino MSN, and the black heterosexual women. Rate of HIV infection in the USA, every 9.5 minutes, someone in the U.S. is infected with HIV. Denial, stigma, discrimination, and secrecy regarding HIV continues to exist even through prevalence of HIV, and deaths from AIDS are very high in many places. They stem from several causes. At the individual level, people do not want to acknowledge that HIV/AIDS is within their community or our community. That is, poses a real personal threat to them and to their family. That they themselves may already be infected and that they may be transmitting the virus to their sexual or drug-injecting partners. Furthermore, people do not want to get tested for HIV or disclose their HIV status because they fear that they will be rejected by their partners, that they will face stigma and discrimination, and or that they will be blamed for infecting others. Most people in the developing world know that they will not have access to drugs and treatments, which will slow down the progression of the disease or alienate its pain and suffering. Thus, denial, stigma, and discrimination and lack of access to care stems and leads to a sense of fear and hopelessness and an encouraged secrecy about HIV and AIDS. Estimated of people in the U.S. unaware that they are living with AIDS, 1 in every 5 Americans are infected and don't even know it. How do you prevent getting infected with HIV? Another polling question for you. Okay, the correct answer is abstinence, being faithful, and correct and consistent condom use. Government and communities have felt a loss to know how to combat this denial, stigma, discrimination, and secrecy. This has justified calls for new or different approaches to respond to the epidemic, particularly in high prevalence areas. Mandatory HIV case reporting and disclosure of HIV status, particularly to sexual partners but also to communities, have been suggested as sound public health measures. More generally, discussions have been initiated nationally, regionally, and internationally on how to create greater openness about HIV/AIDS among individuals and within families and communities, encourage more people to test for HIV, inform sexual partners about the results and prevent further infections, better protect people not infected from becoming infected, increase acceptance, care, and support for people and families affected by HIV. Here we go. How can you prevent getting infected? Abstinence. A, the ABC, the simple method of ABC. Abstain from vaginal, anal, or oral sexual intercourse. Abstain from sharing needles or syringes. Be faithful. If you choose not to abstain, be in a mutual monogamous relationship with both partners, have tested negative for HIV, and of course, correctly and consistently use condoms. This brings us to the end of our webinar, and I'm going to open the lines up for question and answers, or you can chat in your box regarding any questions that you might have. I want everyone to know that we will be sending out a copy of the slides to everyone that who have registered today, and we want to thank you for that. And I see there's a question out there. There is a question. How do you address religious leaders who insist that there is no HIV in their churches when one of their members asks you to speak to their leader because they are afraid to approach them but want their spiritual guidance? Kerry is still with us, and I'm going to pass that over to him.
Okay, I think this is a very good time to really address this question, and I guess this really steps into how do you address HIV within your congregations, and we definitely are planning a separate webinar specifically for that. But one of the things, there are a lot of people that are designated as workers for the HIV ministry or health ministry. One thing that that person would need to do is definitely present the facts to the pastor, faith leader, and it's not so much they don't have to 100% agree with you know, HIV and, you know, everybody has their qualms about it. However, what you might want to do is educate. That's the key to this, you know, to eradicating the disease is educating everyone that you can. Faith leaders especially, because faith leaders are looked at as very influential within communities, especially in the congregations. A lot of people look up to their faith leaders as, you know, having a strong influence in their life. So one thing, not to allude from the how do you address religious leaders, but they need to be educated, providing the information. Though they may think that it does not, it is not in their congregation, that does not mean that they cannot talk about it, that they cannot share, because, you know, knowledge is power. So as long as, you know, as much information that we can provide to our faith leaders, they can, you know, relay that information to the congregations, therefore creating a shift within, you know, the congregation. If you know the information, then, you know, you'll make better decisions. I think it was Maya Angelou that says, if you know better, you do better. So hopefully if we can educate everyone, and I'll say it again, educate, so that we can, you know, get to a point of eradicating the disease.
Thank you, Carrie. There's another question out there.
One thing I will say, the slides will be made available. They will be on our resource link on our website, so definitely keep that in mind. And if you want it emailed, if you would like the slides emailed to you, you can email Betty Steffens. Her email address is bsteffens, and that's STEPHENS at balmingilead.org, and that's BALMINGILEAD.org. So definitely we want to make sure that we have the resources available to you, and we want to definitely assist you in starting and expanding your health ministry, primarily dealing with HIV and AIDS.
Thank you, Carrie. So this comes to a close of our webinar. I want to thank everyone for being a part of this. We want to thank you very much. Just a little advertisement. The Balm in Gilead is having an African American Church inaugural ball on January 20th in Washington, D.C. in honoring our President Barack Obama in his second election. So if you could visit our website at www.aacib.org, that's AA Alpha Alpha C Cat I B like in Bravo.org for more information, to make a reservation or to become a sponsor or to place an ad or simply be a patron. We would truly appreciate that. Or you can go to the Balm in Gilead, www.balmingilead.org for more information as well. Thank you so very much for being a part of our webinar today. And like Carrie had stated before, we're going to have a list of webinars. But before we get off, I would like for you to fill out the polling that's getting ready to come up. And it's asking you your opinion on what you would like to see at our next webinar. We're just waiting for a few more to place their votes, but please make your votes known, because our next webinar will be based on your deeds according to this polling. Thank you so very much. I'm going to give you a few more minutes. I want to thank each and every one of you so very much for being part, and both based on your questions, your polling, our next webinar will be according to the vote, and so you'll get information from my email and our blast email. So thank each of you so much for being a part, and goodbye.